These trees are supposed to be dead. Not metaphorically, not eventually. They should have died 80 years ago when the atomic bomb decimated Hiroshima. They stood close enough to the blast that nothing living should have remained. Close enough that people assumed the ground itself would never recover. But the trees didn't disappear. They burned, they scarred, and they changed. And then, slowly, they kept growing. Today, seeds from these trees are sent around the world, not as souvenirs and not as symbols, but as something quieter and more fragile. A seed doesn't promise anything. It doesn't guarantee life. Instead, it asks for care. It asks for patience. It asks to be planted without knowing what will happen next. Hiroshima is often spoken about as a warning, or as a moment frozen in time. But this story doesn't end in 1945. It continues here with something small, alive, and unfinished.
When all the human survivors pass away, they're going to be the only living beings. They are very damaged trees, but in a sense, they've sent their babies out all over the world.
This is a story about what chose to keep living, and about the people who chose to carry it forward.
In Hiroshima, these trees have a name, hibakujumoku. It means bomb-affected trees. Not survivor trees, not miracle trees, but the trees that just happened to be there and survived. On August 6, 1945, the bomb didn't only destroy buildings. It burnt leaves, it scorched bark, and it left devastation across the city. Some of the trees, like the ones behind me, were less than 2 kilometers away from the blast site. Right now, we're about 500 meters away from the blast site. Their trunks split, their branches twisted, and their growth stopped, sometimes for years. At the time, many people believed that nothing would grow here again, that it was impossible given what had happened, that the land had been poisoned beyond recovery. But the trees didn't know that. What they did know was damage and how to recover from it. They pushed new shoots from blackened trunks, they bent their branches away from the heat, and they learned to adapt imperfectly, but adapt nonetheless. What you see now isn't resilience in a heroic sense, but it is perseverance. It's quiet persistence. It's measured in decades, not moments. If you look closely, you can still see the remnants of the blast. You can see charred flesh on the tree. You can see twisted branches, a kind of growth that wouldn't necessarily make sense unless you know the history and know what took place here. The thing that I think is most interesting is that these trees don't erase the history of the event, that they are a tangible reminder of it. They carry the memory of it, and it's written into their records, into the tree rings themselves. You might think that with a tragedy like this is where the story ends for these trees, is the success of them continuing to grow. But here in Hiroshima, it's not. Immediately after the bombing, Hiroshima had no way of knowing that these trees would matter so much. They were damaged and misshapen and in the way of the progress that needed to occur in order to build back the city. But it was only later that these trees became actual witnesses of that day in 1945. They remained because the people of Hiroshima decided not to erase every visible scar of the damage and devastation that happened here. Instead, they decided to live alongside it. This is where the story changes, because once you decide that something that is damaged is worth saving, you also inadvertently decide that it's worth sharing.
Hello, my name is Nasreen Azimi. I came to Hiroshima more than 20 years ago. The city just mesmerized me. I encountered these trees. At the time, there was nothing really very systematic or organized. I knew that the Hiroshima City from time to time just gave out actually a pot of this Chinese parasol, aogiri, to VIP visitors, but there was no system. As early as the 40s, there were some research students who had found that these trees had survived within a 2-kilometer radius of the atomic bomb. And so that idea that people had kept that memory, that was a foundation. That was really important. I asked my friend Tomoko Watanabe, who is the head of a local NGO, and I said, do you think we can join forces and do something, because these trees need to be out in the world as well? We found our master gardener, Master Horiguchi, tree whisperer, and Green Legacy Hiroshima started in 2011.
私の名前は菊池真理子です。グリーンレガシーには週1回勤務をしていて、種が木になるのがだいたい秋頃から、マスターガーデナーの堀口先生が種の状態、木の状態を観察しながら種を取る時期を見極めます。でその後連絡をいただいて、グリーンレガシーのチームとコミュニティの皆さんで種取りを行います。
We try and raise the profile of the trees locally, because though there was a list and there were plaques, but they were not very present in the subconsciousness of Hiroshima citizens or even authorities.
私は広島でもう20年近く育っています。私の母は広島で生まれ育ちました。でなので親戚にも被爆者の方々がおられます。ただ私が子どもの頃は被爆樹木についてさほど知識がありませんでした。最近は小学校や中学校でも平和教育の一環として被爆樹木取り入れられていますが、私が小学校中学校に通っていた頃は被爆樹木という存在すら知りませんでした。でグリーンレガシーでの活動をすることによって被爆樹木について知り、人々、被爆者の方々が被爆80年で亡くなっていく中で、被爆樹木のメッセージ、被爆の実相を伝えていくこと自体がすごく大切なことだと実感しています。このような距離感で被爆樹木についての活動を行えていること、それを世界に伝えていく役割を一つ担えていることにすごく誇りを感じています。
Idea of a witness tree is so universal, and Green Legacy is probably one of the rare initiatives that brought this together into a system. And I think in that sense, they have a universal message. They communicate something about a threat that is so frightening and so overwhelming that we may not want to think about it, except they do it in such a gentle way. They're so beautiful. They're still generous. They still give seeds. I mean, it's extraordinary that they continue to thrive. And they are damaged. You know, it's not that they're not damaged. They say the most essential things in the simplest way. I think they're our teachers in so many ways. They're incredible ambassadors of this message of caution, but also hope and beauty and generosity. Yeah, I never thought that there was something as great as Green Legacy, I have to say. They're great trees, great messengers.
Hiroshima isn't frozen in time with what happened here. It is still choosing what to do with its remains. The trees here haven't just survived on their own. They were noticed, they were protected, and they were tended to. And that work hasn't ended. It continues on year after year. A monument asks you to remember, but a seed asks you to care, to accept responsibility without certainty, to tend without any expectation or guarantee of success. Maybe that's the most honest way that this story continues and what really matters the most. Not through words, not through images, but in the decision to accept, to take care of something that might not last, but to take care of it regardless.